Update after 1 year. AITA for skipping my dad's wedding to his affair partner? The betrayal cut me deeper than any knife. My own father, cheating on my dying mother for 3 years with her own friend, then years later, expecting me to celebrate their wedding. I was only 17 when my world began to crumble. My mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and for the next 2 agonizing years, she fought bravely. But during that time, my dad? He was barely there. Always working, always on business trips. It was my aunt and grandma who were by my mom's side, caring for her until she finally passed away. 5 months after her death, a period that felt like a blink of an eye, my dad introduced me to his new girlfriend. I was beyond furious. How could he move on so quickly? I screamed at him, my heart aching with grief and rage. That's when they dropped the bomb. They'd been in a relationship for 3 years. 3 years. That meant my dad had been actively cheating on my mother while she was literally dying. His business trips weren't business at all. They were secret rendezvous with his affair partner. The shock was paralyzing. Then came the white-hot anger. I packed my bags that very day and walked out of his house. I haven't spoken to him since. 8 years have passed. I'm 25 now, and the only family I still communicate with is the aunt who helped me when I left. A few days ago, she called casual at first, asking how I was. Then the inevitable question, "Have you heard from your dad?" I was blunt. Why would I hear from him? She then revealed that he was getting married to his affair partner. My aunt, the person I trusted, suggested that attending the wedding would mend our relationship. My blood ran cold. Why on earth would I do that? I shot back. He's dead to me. A heavy silence fell, and then I heard his voice. My dad's. He asked if that was truly how I felt about him. The sound of it, after all these years, was like a punch to the gut. I immediately hung up. He'd been listening the whole time, with my aunt. I quickly texted my aunt, reminding her that I'd explicitly asked her not to tell him anything about me. She'd agreed. Her reply was swift and brutal. She called me an asshole for what I'd said, claimed my dad was crushed, and told me I should move on by now. I was stunned. This was the woman who had helped me. I didn't want an argument, so I just blocked her. Over the next 2 days, the wedding invitation arrived in my mailbox. The only person who knew my address was my aunt. Suddenly, my phone was blowing up. Calls and texts from my dad's uncles, cousins, other aunts. Everyone telling me I should give him a chance and come to the wedding. Some even called me names for my stance. Then, a text from the affair partner herself. She claimed my dad was considering postponing the wedding and urged me to just talk to him. Just for context, this woman was a friend of my mom's and knew she had cancer. I simply replied that it wasn't my fault if he postponed the wedding and that I didn't want a relationship with either of them. They were trying to force something that wasn't there. Things quieted down after that, but I won't lie, being called an asshole by so many people from his side of the family did leave me conflicted. Still, I stuck to my guns. The comments I received online validated me. My aunt had completely violated my trust, and maybe it was time to cut off the rest of that family too. I ended up blocking 39 numbers. What my aunt did hurt the most, though. I genuinely thought she cared. I started to wonder if there was some hidden agenda, some catch for them to reach out now, after all these years of silence. Turns out, I was onto something. Some of the texts I got were wild, like, "It's a son's duty to take care of his father, and your future kids would want their grandfather in their life." It was infuriating. I started taking steps to change my number and secure my apartment. A week or so later, my aunt's fiancé showed up at my apartment, waiting for me in the parking lot after work. I was wary, but he assured me he just wanted to talk. He told me the mass text I'd sent, explaining what my dad had done and why I was no contact, had caused an absolute firestorm in their family. Some cousins, who hadn't known the full truth, started questioning my dad and his partner. They got defensive, denying everything. But someone somewhere confirmed it was all true. This ignited a massive argument, with some cousins even pulling out of the wedding. My dad apparently wanted to postpone the wedding just so he could talk to me, but his fiancée, the affair partner, threatened to leave him if he did. The news had even reached some of their friends who used to be friends with my mom, and several of them also pulled out. This caused the affair partner to have a full-blown breakdown, and she started banning anyone who brought it up, family included, from the wedding. According to my aunt's fiancé, she was blaming all of it on me, saying I did it intentionally. Honestly, I just laughed at that. Amazingly, the wedding was still somehow happening. I asked him about my aunt and how all this started. He said all he knew was there was a conversation about how bad the family would look if I wasn't at the wedding, and my aunt offered to call me. He said he disagreed, but she did it anyway. He told me he was only there because he felt I needed to know what had happened. I thanked him, but made it clear I would be going completely no contact with my aunt, and by extension, him as well. He understood, wished me well, and left. I'm not going to lie and say I'm completely okay. I miss my aunt. I miss my mom every single day. But I know what I did was the right thing for me. My girlfriend at the time was a huge support. She cheered me up by coming up with absurd, hilarious ways to ruin the wedding, like catching pigeons from the landfill and releasing them during the ceremony. Obviously, it was just for fun, and I had no intention of going anywhere near that wedding, but it gave me a good laugh. Many of you suggested therapy, and I took that advice. It made me realize just how much grief and anger I had bottled up. I was nervous, but I knew it would do me good. By the way, if you're still with me on this wild ride, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. More unbelievable stories are coming. It really helps me out. A year later, I don't know much about the wedding itself. All I know is they got married. No one from that side of the family has contacted me since, and I haven't gone asking around either. I'm at peace with it. Things are different for me now. I'm getting better slowly. It hasn't been an easy journey. My ex, Mia, and I separated about 4 months after my last post. We had celebrated 2 years together and talked about our future, but I was a mess. Therapy started well, but I quickly realized just how many unresolved issues I had from losing my mom. I was struggling emotionally, crying at random, worrying about messed up thoughts that I might somehow turn into my dad, spiraling with fears I couldn't control. Mia had dreams of marriage and kids, and I knew I wasn't in the right place to give her the future she deserved. It would have been incredibly selfish to ask her to stay. We had a long, honest talk, lots of tears, and ultimately decided to part ways. It wasn't easy, but it was the best decision for both of us. Mia and I still cared for each other deeply, and she, along with my friends, checked on me every single day after the breakup. I wasn't left to face things alone, and for that, I'm so grateful. In July, I was offered the chance to move to my company's head office in another city. After discussing it with my therapist, I decided it would be a good opportunity to change my surroundings and start fresh. In September, I made the move. My best friend used 25 days of his 30-day holiday to help me pack, move, and settle in. I can't overstate how much that meant to me. I have incredible friends. Since then, I've been taking things one day at a time. The new office has been amazing. Everyone was so welcoming, which was a huge relief since I'd been anxious about starting over somewhere new. I now attend online therapy sessions twice a week and grief counseling in person here. It's been helping a lot. I'm in a much better headspace than I was before, though I still don't feel ready to date again. For now, I'm focusing on my career and on continuing to heal. Now, get this, my husband, the man I married, left me just weeks after I gave birth to our daughter. And his reason? He claims he couldn't bond with her because he didn't see her born during my emergency C-section. Can you even believe it? My husband, who's 29, and I, 30 and non-binary, had been married for 5 years. Last September, we welcomed our first child, a beautiful baby girl. My husband was there for most of my labor, but then things went sideways. Very sideways. I had to have an emergency C-section, and the doctors told him to leave the room, to wait outside. In short, he did not see our daughter take her first breath. A week ago, he dropped a bomb on me. He wanted a divorce. He told me he wanted to start over on his dreams of having a family. He insisted he couldn't bond with our daughter, and it was all because he hadn't seen her born. He went on and on about how it had always been his dream to have a small, close-knit family, and now, because of the C-section and him not being in the room, he couldn't have that with me. Even his own dad suggested therapy, but my husband flat out refused, saying he knew it wouldn't work. I made sure he understood I was open to the idea if he ever changed his mind, but he was incredibly insistent that this was beyond repair. A part of me knew I was basically asking for a magic spell to fix this, but I was desperate for any ideas. I ended up asking him to come with me to a therapist, not for him to fix himself, but so I could at least understand why he was leaving. He agreed, and our appointment was yesterday. It didn't go badly, but it certainly didn't go well either. He was brutally upfront with the therapist. He didn't mince words or refuse to answer questions. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, they got to bond the entire pregnancy. That baby is made of their body. I can't compare to that. My work started at birth and I wasn't there, so I don't feel like I ever got hired, if that makes sense. Yeah, he compared it to not having an employment contract. I get the metaphor, I guess, but I still couldn't grasp how it translated to him being unable to bond with our child. Some online comments had even questioned if my non-binary identity was an issue, but my husband insisted to the therapist that it had nothing to do with anything. He didn't care what I am, but how I did. The therapist focused on helping me understand, and I appreciated that, but I was still completely in the dark. My husband had already started talking about choosing a lawyer, saying he wanted a clean break before our daughter got too attached. I was leaning towards just letting him go and focusing on myself and our daughter. So we filed. I took our daughter and moved back in with my parents, who, while not thrilled about the divorce, were absolutely delighted to have the chance to nanny their granddaughter. Life was in stasis for about a week after that therapy session, until my father-in-law asked us to come over for dinner. He told me that my husband had asked for his help paying for a lawyer. My father-in-law had agreed, but on the condition that we all sit down and have one last talk about the situation. He opened by saying he thought getting this over with would be best for me and our daughter. My husband looked a little hurt at this, but my father-in-law clearly wanted to take one last shot at fixing it. That one last shot turned into several hours of talking. My father-in-law bluntly demanded that my husband explain his reasoning. He just repeated the whole C-section thing, the no bond. My father-in-law kept pushing, asking about the employment contract analogy, trying to get to the bottom of it. After much back and forth, he just said, "I'm not buying this. What's the real reason?" My husband insisted till the very end that what he'd been saying all along was his reason. He didn't see our daughter be born, so he couldn't bond. He claimed he tried, but the connection just wasn't there. He believed there was supposed to be a spark of connection right at birth, and in his mind, he couldn't get it now. My father-in-law then asked if he thought our daughter wasn't his. My husband insisted he had no doubts she was his biological child. Then came the big question. Was he seeing someone else? Another woman? Another pregnancy somewhere? My husband did not react well to this. He threw his phone down on the table, saying we were free to search it, that he wasn't a scumbag. After that, the conversation turned to post-divorce life. My husband offered up that he'd been running the numbers and would volunteer $50 a month in alimony and $50 a month in child support. He actually said he didn't have to do either, because we were divorcing and he wanted to cut all ties with the kid, but he wanted to be fair. $50 in alimony. Whatever, I have a job and a roof over our heads. $50 in child support? That's, well, a lot less than whatever. But I refused to stress about it. The court would handle the actual child support amounts. I made myself not be angry and just let them deal with it. I admit, I tuned out most of the rest of my father-in-law's attempts to talk sense into his son after that comment. I think that was when the coffin finally nailed itself shut for me. I started packing when we got home and went to my parents' house the very next day. I'm no longer talking to my soon-to-be ex-husband. His lawyer talks to mine. We haven't spoken in almost 3 weeks. I don't think I need to tell you that he hasn't shown any concern for our daughter. The day after I got to my parents, my sister kidnapped me to her place. We got very drunk. Daughter was with parents, thankfully, and I talked about everything. I screamed a lot. I got most of it out of my system. After that, we had more drinks and watched terrible horror movies. I woke up the next day with a headache from hell, but otherwise feeling better than I had in a long, long time. My job couldn't transfer me, just my luck, but I've been promised a glowing reference, and I'm cashing out what little paid leave I have left to add to my savings. My father-in-law asked, after the failed conversation, if I would be cutting him off. I assured him that he might not see us as much because of how far away my parents live and not knowing where I'll end up, but he wasn't getting rid of me or our daughter that easily. He was very happy to hear that. So that's where I am. Papers have been filed. Daughter and I have moved out of the house. I'm doing my best to ignore my soon-to-be ex's existence. I promised an update once things were officially over, and at this point they're mostly over, so here I am. My daughter just turned 1 this month. Her first word? Nod. I suspect this is because my father-in-law brought home a foster-to-adopt dog a few months back whose previous owners called her Nod or Nodder. Daughter absolutely loves that dog. My father-in-law sends me pictures of her every day to show to my daughter. My ex-husband and I are just waiting on some final paperwork for the divorce to be complete. He hasn't contested anything, but he did look the judge in the face and repeat the whole "didn't see birth, can't bond" thing. His lawyer actually tried to defend that claim, presenting studies that he said talked about damages to bonds when fathers weren't present and actively involved for everything. But my ex was there. He was active and involved my entire pregnancy and was present for my entire labor until things went wrong. This wasn't a case of, "Oh hey, you knocked someone up 5 years ago, now bond with his kid." Our daughter was definitely less than an hour old when he held her for the first time, probably less than half an hour, and I had proof for this claim too. Among other things, I had pictures of the two of us at multiple prenatal appointments. My father-in-law was also willing to file a statement talking about how my ex and he were involved in my pregnancy. Needless to say, the judge was not impressed with my ex's lawyer's arguments. He tried to push my ex for therapy, made comments about how my ex would regret this later. But my ex stood stubborn with his, "I need to start over" line. He has visitation for the paperwork. Care to guess if he's used it? Nope. He does also have to pay child support. If you've read my posts, you might remember that he offered me a gigantic $50 a month. And that's all he's been paying, despite the judge ordering a lot more. So that's a fight I'm going to have to steel myself for. I'm surprised he started shortchanging me even before the divorce was final. But he did tell me at my father-in-law's that he's not a scumbag, so in his mind, he's probably just keeping true to his word or something. He's shown no interest in our daughter. No other children, pregnancies, or potential partners have popped up either, as best my father-in-law can tell. My ex is single and not showing any interest in dating yet. I don't know how I really feel about it all. It would make more sense if he was cheating, or if there was something concrete. It would be easier to have something solid to point to and say, "Go screw yourself into a tornado for making my life fall apart," and then try to move on. But all the lived evidence points to him honestly thinking he has to do this. I'm in therapy. I found a place about halfway between my parents and my father-in-law's, and I'm still doing freelance work. I would rate myself as okay. My daughter is happy, healthy, and kicking. She will be absolutely fine. I plan to never speak to my ex again once this paperwork is done. I just have to wait to be able to totally start over myself. It's been a long, painful journey, but I'm finally seeing the light. Focusing on my healing, my career, and most importantly, my incredible daughter is all that matters now. Have you ever heard of a reason so unbelievably shallow for someone to walk away from their family? Let me know your thoughts on this story in the comments below. I truly want to know what you think.